With the loss against the 49ers, the Detroit Lions now move into the next phase of their season, which is the off-season. However, though, many Lions fans and also many pundits are wondering the next question: what happens next for them? We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned.
We used to be a team no one respected. We used to be a team no one feared. That was then. This is now.
First victory of the year on the line. Goff's got it. Back, looks, throws, end zone. Yes! Caught!
You know who we are.
10, 5, end zone, touchdown Detroit Lions!
And you know where to find us. We won't be far. We'll be on your front porch waiting for you. We are the New Era Lions. And
we are driven by Detroit.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving in right now. But before we dive on in, again, I just want to say thank you all to those that are returning to the show. It absolutely means the world to me that you guys keep on coming back. You keep giving me more of your time to listen to what I have to say. I'm truly thankful for such loyal fans and subscribers. And to those that are tuning into my show for the very first time, I just want to say thank you all for giving me some of your time as well. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all enjoy the content, but even more so, I hope to gain your subscription if I've earned and deserved it. And with that being said, to everybody, I hope you all are having a really good day. Hope you all are blessed. And with that, I also want to say God bless, and let's dive into the show here. So, when we think about the season, obviously, like I said, the Lions have had a very, very successful season. By far, in my opinion, the most successful season the Lions have had since their last championship win in 1957, because you got to think about it. The Lions not only won their division, the first time they've won the NFC North, and the first time they've won a division crown since 1993. They won 2 straight playoff wins, first time since 1957 that happened, and it's the third time ever that the Lions have had 2 straight playoff victories in one season. And obviously, getting to the NFC Conference Championship game for the second time ever in the franchise's history, the first time obviously being 1991, the second time being this year. So again, very, very successful season by all accounts for the Detroit Lions. Now, I'm going to say this. Despite the fact that the Lions lost to the 49ers 34-31 in the NFC Conference Championship game, many people will look at the Lions season as largely a success. And if you think about it, because of that viewpoint that a lot of people have, national media pundits, local media pundits, and a lot of other people, it gives the Lions plenty to look forward to as we move into the next season. And you think about it, the Lions have got a lot of hope, they've got a lot of enthusiasm, they have a lot of reasons to think, hey, next year we just need to put in more work, we just have to maintain that hunger, we have to maintain that competition, that competitive edge, we need to keep doing what we did last year, bringing it into the next season. And that's all well and good. However, though, despite that strong season that we just saw, there remains a lot of questions that need answering from the Detroit Lions in quite a couple of areas. And I'm going to say this, the answers to those questions, whatever they may be, will greatly influence how and what the Detroit Lions are going to do when the 2024 season starts. Now, obviously, what are those questions? Some people already know what the questions are. The problem is that while we might know the questions, the answers are a bit more murky because it's like, listen, there's a lot of things that can go into this whole thing because we're dealing with a human element here. There's no such thing as anything being guaranteed. There's no such thing as something being written in stone. It's going to have a human element, which means you don't know what's going to happen until it officially happens. So we're going to take a look at some of those situations, some of those questions that a lot of people have on their mind right now when it comes to the Detroit Lions. Now, what's the first question? What's the first area of concern for the Detroit Lions that a lot of people are wondering? It's got to be the one that's most prevalent. It's got to be the one that's most, most right now. And that's, what are the Lions going to do about Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn? Now, understand how I'm asking that question. I'm not saying that the Lions are going to do anything about it. It's like, okay, what do the Lions do if something happens to either of these two? Because we have to understand something here. For the second NFL offseason, both of of the Lions coordinators, offensive and defensive coordinators, have been heavily requested for job interviews by multiple teams that have had head coaching vacancies. And you have to think about it here. When we started this offseason, after, all the head coaches that got fired on what's now known as Black Monday, we had 8 head coaching vacancies that had to be filled. Now, from those 8, there's only 2 that remain, which is the Washington Commanders and the Seattle Seahawks. Now, when we take a look at those positions that still need to be filled, Commanders and Seahawks, now we need to start taking a look at the actual candidates, which is offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Most people want to talk about Ben Johnson. And the reason why is because Ben Johnson is by far the more highly sought-after coordinator of the two. It's not even a debate. It's not even a contest. And everybody knows it. And as we know, Ben Johnson, at least prior to the conference championship game, was the reported favorite for the Commanders' job. Now, after the conference championship game, there has been reports that have come out, either from Rappaport or from Schefter, that has changed a little bit. But I'm going to just say this right now. Regardless of what has happened, regardless of that, I'm just going to say, in my honest opinion, I do not think that the Commanders are likely going to hire Ben Johnson for a couple of reasons. But this is just my personal opinion. But this is what I got for my evidence. First and foremost, let's understand something here. The Commanders have now brought in, or are about to bring in, defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys, Dan Quinn, for a 3rd interview. And if I recall correctly, it's the 3rd in-person interview. I'm just going to say this right now. You do not bring in a guy 3 straight times if you have no intention of hiring him. And you have to think about what Dan Quinn brings to the job as a coach. He has prior head coaching experience because he used to be the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. He also has Super Bowl experience. He has playoff experience. He has a lot of things that the Commanders are going to want. They want a guy that knows what they're doing. They want a guy that has experience. They want a guy that can be able to command respect in a locker room like the Commanders that, well, let's just be fair and honest here. It's been kind of a little bit lost at sea for the last couple of years. Now, that to me seems like that Dan Quinn is a much more highly sought after favorite to win the job with the Commanders because, hey, he's interviewed with them about to be 3 separate times. It's like, listen, you bring a guy in that many times. At this point, it's just kind of like, okay, when are you going to offer him the job and if he's going to say yes or no? Now, I'm just going to say this. Regardless of what Dan Quinn does, that's irrelevant. But let's just say hypothetically, what if Ben Johnson leaves? Because that's the big question that everybody has. What happens if Ben Johnson leaves? Well, obviously, we already know this much. If Johnson leaves, a new offensive coordinator is going to have to be appointed. But as Dan Campbell has stated, they're going to have to be a fit. They're going to have to be a fit for the culture. They're going to have to be a fit with what the Lions are looking for as far as with chemistry with players, how they do their business, blah, 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 and it just goes right on down the list. Now, I'm going to say this. If that's the case, and that's what Dan Campbell is looking for me, the likely candidates that are going to probably fill the offensive coordinator job are most likely going to be from within first. Because, again, you have to think about it. Trying to look outside of the organization to find people that exemplify what Dan Campbell is looking for is a little bit more difficult than saying, okay, we got guys in the building that we could potentially promote from within that we already know they exemplify that. We just need to know if they have the ability to take over a larger role. Now, who are the candidates that I think the Lions have in the building that could take over for Ben Johnson should he leave? For me, there are 2 different guys. The first candidate, and probably the best candidate if Ben Johnson is to leave, is pass game coordinator Tanner Enstrand. I hope I pronounced that last name correctly. But he's the guy that I think is most likely, if Ben Johnson is to leave, would be the best fit for that job. Because you have to understand something here. Let's think about this. Tanner took over the position and the job and the role that Ben Johnson had prior to last year before he was appointed as the offensive coordinator, the pass game coordinator. What also is Tanner in charge of? He's in charge of the tight ends, just like Ben Johnson. So it's like, okay, obviously there's a correlation there. Now you have to think about this. Tanner was able to take yet again another prolific season of pass game coordination for the Detroit Lions offense. So it's like, okay, obviously whatever Tanner is doing is a good fit with what Jared Goff and this offense does because they've been able to maintain the success that they had the year prior. So for me, it's like, okay, obviously you've got some stuff to work there. You've got some things that are already in place that should be able to allow for a somewhat, I wouldn't say completely, but somewhat seamless transition for Tanner to take over for offensive coordinator if the Lions were to go that route. The other candidate for me would be quarterback coach Mark Brunell. Here's the reason why. Number one, Mark Brunell has been Jared Goff's quarterback coach for the last 3 years. So obviously those two already have a great working relationship. They know how each other thinks. They know how to communicate. There would be no mishandling or miscommunication between the two as far as what they're looking for from each other in terms of offensive production. Plus, on top of that, Mark Brunell has a lot of experience in the NFL as far as being able to read coverages, understanding what defenses like to do. It, to me, seems like, okay, that right there should also have a good probability as well because you got a guy that has the in-game experience that Mark Brunell has, and Mark Brunell has played in some pretty high-profile games, has a lot of experience, not only now as a coach, but also as a player. So to me, if it's not Tanner, it's most likely Brunell. So those two right there, I think, would be the two best in-house candidates should, Ben Johnson leave. But again, I'm just going to say this. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And some people are going to be like, well, David, what about outside options? Do you have any outside options? I'm going to be honest. I don't know of any outside options right now that would be fits because, again, you're talking about people that are outside the organization. They have to fit what Dan Campbell is looking for. So for me, that would be kind of more of a wait-and-see mindset, kind of see what presents itself if that option were to go. But again, I'm just going to keep saying it. I personally just don't think Ben Johnson leaves. My belief is that there's a 60% chance that Johnson stays. And because you have to think about it. Of the two remaining jobs that are left, that's the Commanders and the Seahawks. Only one of those jobs actually has a decent quarterback, and that's the Seahawks with Geno Smith. And Geno Smith actually kind of regressed this year with the Seahawks prior to his 2022 performance where he kind of stepped out back onto the stage. So if you think about it, the Commanders are supposedly the job that, Ben Johnson's kind of linked to. Well, for me, it's like, you take a look at the quarterback that the Commanders have. Sam Howell, he's a stopgap quarterback at best. He's not going to be a long-term solution for the Commanders. They're going to be looking to upgrade their quarterback position in the offseason this year. I can guarantee it. And Johnson has stated in the past, what was the biggest reason he came back to Detroit? It was Jared Goff. Now, you have to think about this. Geno Smith is not on Jared Goff's level. Sam Howell is definitely not on Jared Goff's level. So you don't have a similar quarterback in either of those two franchises that are similar to Jared Goff, and there's no way in hell the Lions are going to give Jared Goff to either of those two franchises. So to me, it's like, listen, if Johnson can't get a quarterback that's similar to Goff or Goff himself, I just have a lot of doubts as to why Ben Johnson would want to leave. And I especially don't think he's going to want to leave after what happened in the championship game. It's like, listen, we can come back, we can get back there again, we can get to a Super Bowl. And I think that that's what Ben Johnson wants more than anything, is to get to a Super Bowl with the offense that he's developed here in Detroit. So that's why I think, I don't really think that Ben Johnson's going to leave. That could change by the time this video comes out, or it might change after the video comes out. But that's just my personal belief. Now the other coach, Aaron Glenn, much, much shorter in terms of coaching analysis than Ben Johnson, because I'm going to be honest with you guys here. I think it's safe to say, and I don't like it, but it's safe to say Aaron Glenn's not going anywhere. Again, Aaron Glenn has gotten a lot of interview requests over the last 3 seasons, but I'm going to say this right now. Every time we hear about the interview requests, I always kind of have it with a grain of salt because it almost never results in anything, and there's almost never any real serious interest in hiring him. And the reason why is it's like, listen, you can say that players respect him, that he's the most liked or whatever kind of defensive coordinator. That's not going to sell a team on hiring him to be a head coach. Now, I know there are a lot of fans of mine that would love to see Aaron Glenn go somewhere else so we could get a different defensive coordinator. But to me, it's just like, listen, you take a look at all the news that's coming out between the Commanders and the Seahawks. it's not likely that he's in the running. And apart from his initial interviews that he's had with the Seahawks and now the second one he's going to get with the Commanders, I just don't really see that he's going to go anywhere. Again, it looks like the Commanders are more set on either Johnson or Dan Quinn, and it doesn't look like the Seahawks are set on Glenn at all. So it's like, listen, I think we're going to be stuck with Aaron Glenn for a fourth year. Now, some people might be saying, well, why do you say stuck? I just don't think Aaron Glenn's that good of a defensive coordinator. I hope that maybe after the fourth offseason we get more improved and more talent, he might change that narrative. But after 3 years, I don't think it's going to change. So that's the first set of questions, is what happens with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn? Now comes the next question, the next big question, and that is, what do we do about Jared Goff and extending him? Because let's be fair and honest here. This is a foregone conclusion. The Lions are going to extend Jared Goff. Rappaport, if I recall correctly, before both playoff games over the last 2 weeks, said several times the Lions and Goff are wanting to work on a deal for an extension this offseason. He's reported that twice. And it's like, listen, Rappaport is one of the most accurate guys in the NFL when it comes to information. So for me, it's like, listen, if Rappaport said it twice, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when and how. And for me, it's like, listen, we already know that the Lions previously this season decided to open up contract negotiation talks with Goff's representatives. And it's already been proven multiple times. Goff wants to stay here. The Lions want to keep Goff. And you have to think about it. Why the hell would the Lions not want to keep Goff? He has accomplished more here in Detroit in less time than any quarterback in Lions history outside of Bobby Lane. He's won 2 playoff victories in the same year. He has gotten the Lions to a conference championship game. He's gotten us to the playoffs. He's gotten us to a 12-win season. I mean, you just go down the list of all the things that Jared Goff has done. He has accomplished quite a lot here. So it's like, why would you let that man walk out of the building? So for many Lions fans, they would also like to see Jared Goff back. But the question, the debate, so to speak, is whether or not, or how long, I should say, that contract is going to be. Whether or not it's going to be a short contract, it's a long contract, a very financially heavy-laden contract. It's one of those conversations that a lot of people have, because I'm going to be honest with y'all. Jared Goff is one of the best players that the Lions have ever had that donned the Honolulu blue and silver, because it's like, listen, you take a look at all the quarterbacks the Lions have had, Jared Goff is easily the number 2 quarterback on that list. Sorry, Matthew Stafford, you're now number 3. Not going to debate that with anybody. Jared Goff has done more than Stafford did. I don't give a thunder about the yards or stats. When you win 2 playoff games and you get to a conference championship game, all else goes out the door. That's just my personal opinion. So it's like, listen, Jared Goff is in line for a very lucrative, very fat contract. And that's probably one of the biggest areas of contention for some Lions fans, because for some Lions fans, just the idea of giving Goff a contract is a very bitter pill to swallow. But for others, it's just a matter of, okay, how many years, how much money are we talking here? Guaranteed money, total money, whatever the case might be. Now, earlier this season, many thought Jared Goff would probably be around a 4-year deal, probably worth about $160, $180 million, which comes to about $40 to $45 million annually per year if you do the averages. However, though, I would say this, after what Jared Goff has done this year, that number for some people has now jumped into the 50-plus range. Now, I'm going to say this. Regardless of whether people want to think Jared Goff's going to make $50 million average a year, I'm going to tell you this right now. That's not going to happen, because the logic of contracts is never that simple. Because let's think about this. Even if Goff were to get a 4 to 5 year deal that's around that, $180 to $250 million area, Jared Goff is never going to make on average that $45 to $50 million a year. It's just not going to happen, because you have to understand the nature of contracts. These teams find ways to make the numbers work and the cap work so where it's never too much of a burden to the team. And they do it by backloading the contracts. When the cap space over the course of the years gets higher in the league, they also make it to where bonuses are going to take that cap value down a little bit. So for me, it's like, listen, Jared Goff's cap value might get to that point later on in the contract, but by that time, the cap value in the NFL is going to increase by $20, $30, $40 million. So the cap value versus what the salary cap of the NFL is going to offset that to a certain degree. And furthermore, you have to understand this as well. The Lions have a guy in the building in Mike Disner who decided to stay with the Lions, who has been monumental to the Lions' ability to understand how to handle the cap situation and understanding how to make contracts work. So with him in the building and the Lions trying to extend Jared Goff, I have no doubt that the contract is going to work not only for Goff but also for the Lions. And you have to think about it, just to boil it all down here. Point of the matter is Goff has proven that he is a top quarterback, and he deserves to be paid like a top quarterback. And I'm pretty confident the Lions are going to find a deal that's not only going to work for Jared Goff, but it's also going to work for the Lions, and they'll figure it out. Again, the Lions want a deal that's going to work for everybody as best as possible. And again, I don't think Jared Goff is going to be greedy about it. Is he going to want to be paid? Yes, he's going to want to be paid, but I don't think he's going to do it to the detriment of the team. So that, in my opinion, is what's going to happen with Jared Goff. They're going to give him an extension. It's probably going to be a 4 to 5 year deal. It's probably going to be somewhere in that $180 to $250 million deal. We'll just have to see what the total numbers are at the final point. But that's what I think is going to happen. Now, finally, this brings us to the last question, the last situation that a lot of Lions fans are wondering here, and a lot of analysts are wondering. What happens with the free agent rookie contracts dilemma? Because you have to think about this. Much of the same vein with the whole Goff contract extension, the Lions have a substantial number of free agents that they got to figure out what they're going to do with. And I decided to actually look this up. The Lions have quite a number of free agents. Now, I'm going to say this. Just because they have a lot of free agents does not necessarily mean they're going to keep all of them. Because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put all the names up on a screen, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put what I think the Lions are going to do, not only in terms of whether they're cut or not, but I'm also going to keep it color-coded, so that way it's a little bit easier for you guys to understand here. So here are all the guys that the Lions currently have that are unrestricted free agents that are coming up, because you also have restricted free agents, you also have exclusive right free agents. Those are a little bit more tricky to figure out. But here's the unrestricted guys. When you take a look at all these guys that I'm about to span over for the next, 20, 30, 45 seconds, you're going to start seeing the Lions have some pretty big decisions that they got to figure out here. Now, my personal opinion is you've got to re-sign, or you've got to at least attempt to re-sign C.J. Gardner-Johnson. The guy is a vocal leader. He definitely fits here with what's going on in Detroit. I know some people don't like his mouth, but it's like, you know what? That's fine with me. If you can make the plays, I'm cool with it. He's not going to make the plays all the time, but you need to make them at least some of the time. And then you got to ask the question, will he actually decide to come back? Because he left the Eagles last year to come to us. Don't know if he's going to do the same thing this year. Other guys I think you got to re-sign, Graham Glasgow, Jonah Jackson. I know some people think that those guys need to get improved on, but I'm like, you know what? I don't know if you're going to be able to find those in free agency or the draft, so you keep those guys in the building. I think you also have to take a look at some of these guys that, in my opinion, are going to be because of fits with other teammates or because of what the Lions are looking for as far as their players are concerned, especially from the front office and the coaches. That's why I think Josh Reynolds comes back. It's why I think Will Harris comes back, and that's because Goff has a connection with Josh Reynolds, and for whatever reason, Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn love Will Harris. Jalen Reeves may have been an excellent special teams player, does make plays on defense for us. Jake McQuaid, I would give him a veteran minimum 1-year deal because he is 36, or if he's not willing to take that deal, just let him walk. And the last guy that I think you really should sign would be Donovan Peoples-Jones, because again, he has the ability to play as a wide receiver. He's a good punt returner if we have problems in that area, just like we saw with Khalif Raymond getting injured. And there's never a shortage of having good players around. So those are the players that, in my opinion, I think the Lions should decide to re-sign. The rest of them all, I would just say, listen, we could probably get an upgrade somewhere, or others, they're just dead weight and they need to go. They're no longer fits here. That's just my personal opinion. Now, that takes care of the free agents that need to be re-signed. But what about the rookie contracts that are coming up here? Because you got to think about it here. The Lions have $61 million or so in cap space that they're going to have to work with. Whether or not you go with Spot Rack or over the cap, the Lions are going to have about $61 million in cap space to work with. Now, the Lions have money to use, and they will be able to sign some of those free agents, and they'll be able to extend Goff and some other people. But it's like, listen, you also have to start wondering about, well, what are you going to do with freaking Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown? Their contracts are coming up right around the corner. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 4th-round draft pick, so you got to make a decision on him right away. Otherwise, it's going to start getting into a contest about who can pay him more. Penei Sewell, you can at least pick up his 5th-year option and push the conversation down the road for another year. But it's like, listen, those are two guys you got to figure out too because of their rookie contracts. Same thing with Aleem McNeil. and also Ife Melifonwu. There's a lot of guys that are coming up that the Lions have got to figure out contracts for, and they got to figure out how to figure that all in with the money that they have. Now, $61 million, that's a lot of money. But you start figuring all these guys that the Lions are going to potentially try and keep, it definitely starts eating away into that money pretty quickly, especially if the Lions are also going to try and improve in free agency as well, as we already know they're going to try and do in the draft. So it's like, listen, you got to be smart with the money. And to me, that's why I think the Lions retaining Mike Disner and, Brad Holmes being able to find guys that are going to take contracts for a little less than what the market value is, I think it gives the Lions a better shot, a better chance to make this whole thing work. So, my whole point of the matter is, to kind of sum this whole video up really quickly, the Lions, they definitely have some big hurdles to clear. They have a lot of big questions that they need to answer, and they need to answer them very, very well, because this is a very pivotal offseason. Like my title says, you have to nail this offseason correctly in terms of contracts you're handing out, in terms of the draft, in terms of what players you're going to bring in terms of what coaches you might potentially have to bring in to replace certain coaches. This is a pivotal offseason for the Lions because, listen, you got to the conference championship game. If you want to get back there, you got to be right on top of your game because now everybody knows you can do it, and they're going to be looking for you. They're going to be expecting you to do that. You're not going to get another freebie. It's not going to be, we didn't know the Lions could do this. No, we know the Lions can do this. Now we know what to expect with them. Like Dan Campbell said, we ain't hiding from nobody now. Everybody knows what the Lions can and will do. So it's like, listen, you got to be on top of your game, and you got to know what the hell you're doing. Otherwise, it could come crashing down. So, again, very pivotal, very crucial offseason, and these questions and answers, they need to be answered perfectly. So, with that having been said, hopefully I kept your guys' entertainment and your attention. But having said that, I just want to say now, thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you've not had a chance to do so, again, please, please, please subscribe. It really helps me out. We're so close to 5,000 subscribers, so let's keep pushing that number up. But I also want to encourage y'all, please, after you subscribe, make sure you also turn on that bell notification icon as well, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Again, subscription numbers are always going up, but we want to turn on that notification icon so that way as soon as I have something new to release, you guys are right there. You guys can get right back into the conversation. To help in that endeavor, I also encourage y'all, please, share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we share it, the greater the channel spreads, the greater the channel does, and that really warms my heart. And with that having been said to everybody, I just want to say I hope you all enjoyed the content. I hope to gain a new subscriber in you if you had not already joined. And if you have, welcome to the MCM family. Glad to have you. If I still haven't earned your subscription, hopefully you'll come back and you'll get another chance to do so. But until that time, to everybody, just want to say I hope you all enjoyed the content. God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.